Thanks for joining us. I'm Jacqueline Mulcharik. While the Supreme Court has handed down a sharp rebuke of the Harper government's tough-on-crime agenda, in a unanimous decision, the court has upheld British Columbia's right to operate a supervised injection site for drug addicts. 9 justices rejected Ottawa's argument that Insite, which is located in the poorest part of Vancouver, fosters addiction. Advocates say providing access to clean needles and counseling reduces the spread of disease, lowers crime, and encourages users to get off drugs. The NDP's Libby Davies was ecstatic with the decision.
And I want to say to Mr. Harper, because I don't believe any of them ever went there. They never took the time to really find out what Insite was about. They always took this political, partisan, ideological position. And I want to say to them, have you now understood and learned the importance of what Insite is about and how it's so much a part of our community?
Now, today's decision is expected to have ramifications beyond BC. Other provinces may consider opening similar facilities, including Quebec. For more on this now, let's go to CTV's Mercedes Stevenson. She's joining us. Mercedes, just first, what's the reaction been to the Supreme Court decision so far?
Well, Jacqueline, mixed reaction. Of course, supporters of Insite, and in particular, users at Insite and the medical staff there, absolutely elated by this decision. They feel vindicated. They are delighted that they will be able to continue on with their work. The Harper government, of course, disappointed. The health minister stood up today in question period saying exactly that they were disappointed, but of course will comply with the Supreme Court decision to allow Insite to remain open. So mixed reaction today, of course, here in Ottawa, and a great amount of joy out in Vancouver.
But one thing's for sure, this decision will now lead to the opening of more of these kinds of clinics. I think Montreal is looking at opening several, right?
That's right, Jacqueline. There are a number of cities that are actually looking at opening similar injection sites, these so-called safe sites that allow people with addictions to inject drugs. Of course, it's important to point out they're not actually supplying the drugs. They are supplying clean needles to prevent the spread of communicable diseases. And there are a number of cities that would like to have this. And essentially what this ruling said is that health policy in this particular case and the jurisdiction of the provinces trumps drug policy. And the Controlled Substances Act, which of course was federal government jurisdiction there. So this is a precedent-setting case and quite potentially would allow those sorts of sites to open in a number of other provinces and cities that would be interested in having something similar.
What rights were at issue here, though, Mercedes? It really was, what, the federal power of criminal laws versus provincial health care laws?
There's essentially 2 major issues that came into conflict here. The first one was jurisdictional issue, and that's the issue of the federal government to enforce its right over controlled substances, i.e. illegal drugs. And that is, of course, a criminal issue because these are drugs like heroin that people are shooting into their veins, and that's supposed to be illegal. And the federal government saying that they wanted to remove the exemption that this particular site had to that act, saying that it wasn't legal anywhere. And then there was the provincial right, which is health care. And the province saying, look, addiction is a health condition, this is about public health, and this is a public health site, and our right to provide health care trumps your right in the criminal code, essentially. So that was what the Supreme Court ruled on in one part. The other part here is the individual's charter rights, and that's you, the individual. And the Supreme Court said that closing down Insite could violate charter rights of the individual, i.e. addicts could end up injecting drugs with dirty needles, and that would expose them to undue harm, and that would be a violation of their charter rights. So there is, on the one hand, the provincial federal jurisdiction, and on the other hand, the individual's charter rights, both at stake in this decision.
But bottom line now, the feds have to comply, say they will comply?
Bottom line is an exemption to the Controlled Substances Act in this particular case for Insite, and the bottom line there is essentially that health care overruled drug policy in this particular case.
Okay. CTV's Mercedes Stevenson with the details on this. Thanks, Mercedes.
Thank you, Jacqueline.